Hello, everybody, and welcome back to This Day in History. It is May 7th, 2024. Not that matters, but this is a review of This Day in History for May 7th. Some pretty interesting stuff. Pretty interesting people who were born on this day. Well, I think so, anyway. One of them, I actually had the opportunity of visiting his grave just this last year. So, on my way home, apologies for the car. Apologies. I'm eventually going to get it done. Eventually. Yeah, I got to go visit his grave. It was kind of a treat. Friends of mine had treated me to actually going to see the house that he lived in, and then we ended up going to his library, and I got to visit his grave. So that was pretty cool for me, because I always had a lot of respect for him as an individual. But I'll get to that in a moment. So, because I spoke of birthdays, let's go to it. So, on this day in 1711, Scottish philosopher David Hume was born. On this day in 1840, Russian composer Peter, I'm sure it's probably supposed to be Peter, Ilyich Tchaikovsky. So Tchaikovsky was known for, some amazing music, a lot of really good music that he had produced. So he was a music composer, and unfortunately, he didn't live very long. He was only 53 years old when he passed away. So, I mean, that's not a very long life. People usually live a little bit longer back then in the 1800s. I mean, I don't think he even, if he was born in 1940, that means that he died in 1893, 100 years before I graduated high school. It's like, wow, that's unfortunate. So, who was I talking about earlier? Well, in 1884, future President Harry S. Truman was born. Like I said, I got to visit his grave, and he was a remarkable human being. He was, he's gone down in history as being one of the most honest politicians in the 20th century. Just an impeccable human being, really. So yeah, I got to visit his house, and I got to go back to a back area. There was a side door, and there was a special phone that was put there. And so when he went home to Missouri to visit his wife, because she got tired of living in Washington, D.C., she went back home to Missouri, where she was from. The house that they lived in was actually her mother's house. And so the one thing about Harry Truman is he never owned his own house. I mean, he always lived either in his parents' house, or he lived with his mother-in-law when he and Bess got married, and her grandmother also lived with them. Or he lived in the White House, which is obviously, publicly owned. So, he never actually owned his own home. He always lived with, under somebody else's roof. I thought that was kind of interesting. At any rate, what I was getting to is that I walked back there, and I saw this little alcove. There's a back door there, and a special phone was set up, so that it was a direct line. It was the most secure line they could do for, how well they could secure phone lines back then, to Washington, D.C. And I got to go back there, and I saw there, and my buddy says, take a look to your left when you get back there. So I took a look to the left, and on the coat rack was Harry Truman's coat and hat, the iconic coat and hat that he always wore when he went on his walks with the media, with the newspapermen. And I could have just reached out and touched it, although I didn't because I observed the rules. But man, that would have been so cool to actually touch a piece of living history. So, side note there. So in 1892, Yugoslavian President Josip Broz Tito was born. In 1901, American actor Gary Cooper was born. So, some good stuff there. And, we had it was nice and sunny, and now it's starting to spit some rain. Go figure. 1429 it was a pretty significant event during the 100 Years' War. We talked about this a little bit the other day when I mentioned Joan of Arc and I mentioned the Siege of Orleans. Well, it's on this day in 1429 that the British, due largely to the efforts of Joan of Arc and her troops, the British end the siege of the city of Orleans. And that was a significant event because it turned the course of the war, of the 100 Years' War. I mean, it was a turning point which eventually would lead to the end of that conflict. 1846, we're talking, this is the Mexican-American War that we're involved in. On this day, future President Zachary Taylor would lead American forces against the Mexican army, and they would defeat the Mexican army in what would have been the first major clash in that conflict. It was the first major clash of the Mexican-American War. He would go on to defeat General Mariano Arista of the Mexican army, and of course that defeat kind of helped solidify his place in history. He was he had served under Jackson. He was definitely a Jackson man. He and David Crockett didn't get along either. Crockett didn't get along with Jackson, and basically anyone who was a Jackson man, Crockett didn't get along with. And it's fair to say that Zachary Taylor would be considered one of Jackson's cronies way back in his earlier career. So there was that. In 1864, General Grant would clash with General Lee at a, they had quite a few clashes, I imagine, because Appomattox wasn't, the conclusion of Gettysburg and the like. That wasn't their first clash, I'm sure. But so they would clash at this place called Spotsylvania Spotsylvania Courthouse, and that was in Virginia. So it was on this day in 1864 that he would engage in battle with Lee. Grant would. In 1877, if you're into dogs and you're into like the dog shows, which I'm not, that Westminster Dog Show in 1877 was the very first show, and it's said that next to the Kentucky Derby, the Westminster Dog Show is the most popular televised, event on TV. Yes, that would be my car telling me that I'm out of gas, or my gas lights come on. Can't make this stuff up. So, 1886, there's a pharmacist by the name of John, where's my place? John Pemberton. He's a pharmacist. He develops this elixir called Coca-Cola. It's meant to be a health tonic. And that, which would end up becoming, the popular soda. A little fun fact about that is that back then, these elixirs were meant to like help improve health, and they didn't really understand that the significance of what things like cocaine could do. Cocaine was put in Coca-Cola. It was also put in like other popular soft beverages like Pepsi, with the idea that it would pep you up. That's why it was a lot of these sodas were supposed to be health tonics, but they really weren't health tonics. And it wasn't until the FDA was created that stuff like that would be outlawed, and then it became the soft drink that we know of today. In 1902, on the island of Martinique, Mount Perle, it erupted, volcano, killed 30,000 people. And what's interesting is that that was 15% of the population at the time. So I mean that's a pretty brutal, catastrophic event there. That was in 1902. 40 years later, in 1942, we're talking the Battle of Coral Sea. The USS Lexington, which was a aircraft carrier, it was the first aircraft carrier to be sunk by the enemy in the war. So it was on this day in 1942 that the aircraft carrier USS Lexington was sunk. In 1970, on this day in 1970, Paul McCartney would announce that he had left the Beatles. So the Beatles they had broken up, and he went and started off on his solo career there, and not long after released his single "Let It Be." In 10 years later, 1980, the WHO, that's the World Health Organization, declares that smallpox has been officially eradicated through vaccinations and the like. They had eradicated that disease from existence, or so they said, and they did that on this day, May 7th, in 1980. In 1999, Mary Mace, she's the first woman to graduate from the Citadel, which is it's a military academy / college in South Carolina. She would be the first female to graduate from that military college. And in 2012, children's book illustrator Maurice Sendak passes away at the age of 83. So I told you there was some interesting stuff here, and obviously I didn't go too far on side notes and the like. So, but that's your day in history for this day, May 7th, and we'll do it again tomorrow. I'd like to send a shout out to a friend of mine, Nomi. Her birthday is today, so happy birthday. I can never remember when my best friend Brad's birthday is. I know it's sometime in May, and I think it's early May. I know that my friend Tiffany's birthday is tomorrow. So I'm just gonna throw out a shout out to one of my best friends growing up, one of my childhood best friends, Brad. Happy birthday, brother. Love you, man. So yeah, I'm just gonna throw out that so I'm covered. So yeah, we'll do it again tomorrow for May 8th, and I'll give a special shout out to Tiffany for her birthday on that one, and we'll do it again. So have a great day. I'm sorry for the sun glare. It's not the greatest for filming, but I'm on my way to work, and by the time I get off work, it's late, it's middle of the night, it's dark, and you won't see anything there. So that's just how it is when it comes to working swing shift, I guess. So at any rate, do take care of yourselves. Have a blessed day. Be safe. Enjoy the sunshine if you have it. And we'll be back again tomorrow for May 8th. All right? Take care. See ya.